out on the field, the feeling I feel when I'm living my life for what's real. Make America healthy, feeling like it's time for a change. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back up healthy again.
Yo,
What's happening?
dude, it just occurred to me how big those spaghetti squashes are.
They're massive.
You could make some mile-long spaghettis out of them things.
Seriously, good eating right there.
For real. Them
Who's that old guy though?
Any Alton Brown fans in the house? Any Alton Brown fans?
Huge.
Good eats, bro.
Love Alton Brown.
Classic.
That's my dude.
Damo, you and Billy keep on coming to hang out. We're gonna have to throw you guys into the intro video too.
For real. God, I'm terrified of what the AI is going to do to me, but I'm ready.
I'll be honest with you. The one thing, Ian, your foot bugs me. Like there's
It's
one
a little
thing.
like
We got to fix the foot. We got to fix the foot.
I gotta make Ian's foot healthy again.
You got to do it.
Anyways, team, welcome internet to the show tonight. We've got a fun show. Our boy Dustin can't be with us, but we got Damo and we got Billy Zero. We got Kyle and myself hanging out. How you guys doing?
I'm chilling, man. Yeah, it's been a week. It has been a Maha week for sure.
Yep.
I'm feeling real bad for the Dustin Stockton fan club right now, though. I do feel bad for them.
Yeah, they'll be disappointed, but Dustin's hard at work right now. He is preparing for his new show too, which is Tinfoil and Tokens, which I think is going to be dropping tomorrow. And Ian, you did an interview for
dude, it's gonna be sick. I did an interview to go into the first one. Got my own intro video. We elaborated on the Ian Carroll conspiracy. I gave away all the dirt on who pays me for real, on my CIA training, on what laboratory I was specifically grown from embryo in, all the works. My Black Panther father, we like fully dove. It's great.
Yeah,
you're Elon's first secret baby.
Yep. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Well, excited for that. I think the whole internet's going to be excited for that as well too.
And today was a good Maha day for me. I just finished my steak dinner, eating my steak with my hands, a whole ribeye. I feel so good now. I've had sun all week long. Got to the gym today. I'm like fully Maha today. It's feeling good.
Hold on, wait a second. You ate your steak with your hands.
I always eat my steak with my hands.
I'm going to tell you something. Today, I opened my farm meat.
Yeah.
And I had a ribeye, and I cooked it, and I cooked it in my tallow and my eggs in the tallow, and I literally for the very first time ever, I almost felt ashamed. No one's in the house.
Let's go.
I tore that bad boy over a pizza pan. I just ate like a
It's
caveman.
So good, right? Doesn't it just feel primal?
It tasted better. I'm not even.
It tastes better. And so what I do is I like to slice my steak, but then I eat it with my hands from slices. And because then it's like you're tearing instead of like smashing. And it's just good, dude. It
does sound primal.
I did the same thing when I had it on my pizza pan. All the juices went to the center. So as I cut the steak into pieces, I was dipping it all, and then I was like, I'm glad no one's watching me because this is not.
Oh, dude, it's a mandatory. If you want to be in my life, like if you're gonna be my girlfriend, first, like within the first couple dates, you better be okay with me eating steak with my hands because it's happening forever. It's never changing. That's like my first loyalty test.
Okay, you go to a steakhouse. Does that happen? Does that happen at a steakhouse?
It has many times. It doesn't always. Sometimes in refined company, I'll reform my ways, but it depends. There's times when I just slip one in real quick.
It's funny because when you described that you were eating it with your hands, all I could think about was that thirst trap meme video I've seen. There's this like super hot woman at a restaurant, and they deliver this like Flintstones intro sized slab of meat, and she just pours like the chimichurris on it, picks it up.
The one you're talking about.
Yeah,
it was a great video.
So today, today I come home and there's a big box on my front porch, and I'm like, what is that box? And I open it's sent to a person that doesn't live here with my address, and I open it and it's 40 pounds of beef. And I forget one of the guys that's visiting with me listened to this show, went on and checked beef initiatives, and went and placed an order and got his food shipped here. This dude is like totally plugged into health. He's like totally badass. He's helping me with when I'm with
Dude,
with
that's
some
the
of the
game. I got to get some roommates and start tricking them into ordering me some beef, dude.
And make sure they order it from beefinitiative.com/pages/Club Maha.
Let's go.
All right. So before we get into too much stuff, let's just set the container here. So we've got a great welcome to episode 14 of the Club Maha podcast. Club Maha live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Make Indiana Healthy Again initiative that Billy Zero and Bobby Kennedy and others came together yesterday, and we'll dive into that. We're going to talk about Bobby is going after the vaccine industry, trying to bring efficacy, efficiency, accountability, transparency, data,
actual studies,
like accuracy. Accuracy is probably one of the best words, to the VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. We're going to talk a little bit about the weather modification bills that are going around, as well as updates on the Monsanto Protection Acts that many people are really seeking to protect our good friends at Monsanto. And just to everybody who's watching, kudos to the 6,000 people who have tuned in thus far. Thank you, as always, for joining. Drop notes in the comments. We see all the comments. We'll highlight excellent comments. If there are specific topics or questions that you want to drop, please throw them in. This is a club. Y'all are invited. Please join. If you have something that's burning in hot desire, let us know, because we're here to support. So let's go. Let's grow.
Let's start with a couple of the big things this week. Indiana press conference yesterday. First press conference for Secretary Kennedy since he became confirmed. Dr. Oz was there, packed room. And basically Governor Braun was announcing his health initiative for the state. And what's interesting about this is some states are adopting this and some states are kind of just completely ignoring this and almost going against a health initiative. But he had some great points. Clearly, Dr. Oz, the governor, and Secretary Kennedy are all keyed into the same idea. Some of the key points, they're going to be removing soft drinks and candy from SNAPs. Went over some of those numbers and the number of people and the amount of candy and soda that people are ordering, and it's a large percentage of that money. So they're removing that from one of the issues I find with that, though, is that as they do that, we should also be attacking the food deserts. They didn't mention the food deserts. In a lot of smaller communities, they don't have access to the good food.
For anyone that doesn't know what a food desert is a part of a city, which this happens very commonly. It's a part of a city where there are actually no good grocery stores. So whole communities basically are forced to shop at 7-Elevens. It's usually in low-income communities where a lot of people don't have cars and they're either bus, bike, and walk. And so they don't have a way to go, 20 miles, 15 miles to a grocery store. So they wind up just buying their food from 7-Elevens and those types of stores. And so they wind up just eating trash and candy and junk food because it's not available, because corporate, data has shown that it's not valuable to serve those communities. And it's obviously very complicated because, crime and policing and legislation that doesn't support communities and all sorts of things. But you wind up with these communities that have no food, essentially. That's a food desert.
Yep. One of the other things they talked about was removing food dyes. This is an interesting thing in the Maha space, because if you talk to the people the OGs in Maha, been here, done that long time, started the movement 20, 30 years ago. It's really about the medicine. And so when we get diverted, and this is one of the things that a lot of the people in the movement don't want to have happen, is to get diverted to food dyes. Because when you look at those ingredient lists, out of the food dyes, like the other 98 ingredients are also bad. And I hate to call people out, but I've said I'm going to do it when I have to. I watched a video with Food Babe, and she was walking through the grocery store, and she picked up a little Easter bunny packet, and it was like a pancake mix. And it was a pancake mix. I think it was in the shape of a bunny, and it had a little Teflon pan. And she said, here's what you should do. You should just throw away the mix and make your own and use the pan. It's fun. And I'm like, no, it's not fun. You don't cook on Teflon.
I was surprised because I love Food Babe. She's a legend, but I picked up on that too, man.
But that's one of those things. So she's one of the newbies, like new on the scene, and she's just kind of not delivering the full.
She's not that new. I've been following Food Babe for well over 10 years. She's been doing her thing for a while. It's just
but has she been on the health train for that long?
I think the health trip is on this level is kind of a
health
newer
red
thing.
Pill. It goes deep, and it does take some sort of grace on our end, on everyone's end of like everyone is learning. There's so much to learn about. Everything is poisoning us. And so it's like, it's understandable that some people aren't Teflon pilled yet. Some people aren't food dye pilled yet. Some people aren't, there's a little bit of everything going on out here, but Teflon sucks. Don't cook with it. I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day about don't cook on the Teflon. Don't use metal on the Teflon. Throw it away. Get the cast iron out every time, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing they talked about was physical activities for kids. My kids is in public school, and they don't go outside. He gets in school at 9 o'clock, and they literally don't go outside.
Wait, really? No recess outside?
No, after 6th, 7th grade, they go in and they don't go outside.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, and I guess that's a thing now. So Dr. Oz actually talked about it.
Thinking back to it, that was my experience too in public school just 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. Is like in high school and middle school, like in high school especially, you have a lunch period, but most people just go hang out in the cafeteria. We were able to go outside, like we were allowed to go walk off campus because our school was cool. But yeah, you're right. That's actually always kind of been how it is, I think, for a long time.
And if you think about that, we're removing the vital component of the amazing sun coming onto these kids in the middle of the day, getting exposure. And, most kids are deplete in a number of vitamins and minerals, vitamin D being one of them. Magnesium, calcium. These kids are getting deplete of these vitamins by sticking into school. So Dr. Oz talked about that, and Governor Braun talked about that as one of his key points. He had 9 points. They were all kind of going towards the health thing. Another one was Medicaid changes. They spent a lot of money in Medicaid. 28% of it is misappropriated money that goes to places and people that don't need it. Going after that, and he's also changing the work environment and work requirement for people that are on SNAP. So if you're on SNAP and you can work, they have 100,000 jobs available in the state right now. So they're trying to figure out a polite way. If you're going to get some money, maybe you can come and help. Not a forcing situation, but kind of can you help your state out? We're going to give you.
I like trying to find that middle ground.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Dr. Oz spoke a lot about fitness. One of the things that stuck out for me was, walking 20 minutes a day can change your life. And there's a lot of research on that. I'm in my 50s now and, started walking now because you kind of know that you need to, but I probably should have started it younger. One of the musicians I play with, he's walking 4 miles a day and lost weight and feels amazing. So that's one of the things I think Dr. Oz is bringing to the table. Then Kennedy came up. What's always fascinated me about Bobby, and very few individuals I've met through my life, is his ability to recall facts. And there's not one fact that I've checked him on that I found it to be wrong. And the data points are insane. Like when he's speaking, I just have to write them down because I'm not going to remember the percentage of people that are pre-diabetic teens in this country. But he says it's 38%. That's a lot of kids that are getting ready to be diabetic. That's completely not needed in this country. Talk 70% of kids are obese or overweight. And if you look around, especially, in certain parts of the country, that seems to be true. And he juxtaposed that with Japan. What's interesting about Japan is 30 some years ago, 3% obese. Today, 3% obese. We can talk about Japan when we get to the autism and MMR conversation as well.
And Billy, when we're talking about like 70% of kids are now pre-diabetic, I think I saw something today where they're trying to push lifetime Ozempic on these kids now. Like that's the answer.
There's actually 38% pre-diabetic.
And Ozempic isn't a pill, right? Like it's an injection.
Yeah.
It's an injection and you can never be.
It's literally a venom.
It's a shot,
literally a venom.
like needles.
Yeah.
Like, ah!
Well, when you're talking about diabetes, it's already normalized, right?
Yep. It's a
and it's interesting 'cause I've been on
multi-billion-dollar industry.
and I've been on carnivore diet, so I've been hanging out in these carnivore communities because I'm trying to heal my gut. I really don't want to stay on this forever because I actually do really well with things like fresh fruit and honey and stuff like that. But I'm doing this carnivore thing to heal my gut, and I'm seeing a lot of them talk like, okay, diabetes is an insulin resistance to sugars and carbs, and you want to add this other thing. Why not try just taking away the carbs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Breakfast is a scam.
Really tough.
I mean, it's tough. This is a really hard diet to be on. I got to admit, but
especially the first like month or so.
Oh, it was brutal, man.
Yeah, the cravings kill, dude.
Details.
Yep. I remember.
Yeah.
And then today, a great press event with Secretary Kennedy going over it's Autism Visibility Month for those who don't know, and he started just going over the data again, and the data is just absolutely fascinating. He outlined a lot of transparency coming, which is completely gone right now. I don't think most people know, but 90% of the peer-reviewed studies are literally manipulated to get to the thing that they want to be true. So in that data, we end up losing a lot of the real data that we can aggregate within the autism spectrum. So everything that we're seeing right now is a bit of manipulated data, except for the real data that we can all agree on. 1 in 31 autism rate as of today. It was 1 in 36 2 years ago. So the number that I've been saying, I've not updated it, and it's now at 1 in 31, according to Secretary Kennedy. 1 in 20 for boys. 1 in 12.5 currently in California, which seems to be the national trend. Since 1992, birth data autism has increased 480%. If you want to talk about the pandemic we're in, you got a 6-month-old child going in and getting a course of somewhere between 2 and 6 vaccines. One of those is now a COVID vaccine. There's 0 interactive studies at all between any of these vaccines. And now you're looping on this COVID vaccine, which has 30 to 72 side effects that are known. The press conference today was one that talks about transparency. It talks about the data. It talked about the CDC study. CDC did a study themselves with an outside agency in 2010. This study was specifically outlining what is going on with the VAERS system. So now we can back up for those who don't know what VAERS is. In the early 80s, vaccine manufacturers were being sued and complaints against them because their vaccines were causing injury. Beginning in 1984, Congress was lobbied by these manufacturers to come up with a liability protection plan for the pharmaceuticals. They literally played the United States health system off of congressmen saying, if you don't give us a liability shield, we will stop making your MMR vaccines and your other vaccines, and it's going to be havoc in this country. Yeah. Well, of course, all the congressmen are like, okay, we got to do this. And so over 2 years, they built the Vaccine Injury Act. Out of that act was created the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, also known as VAERS. At that point, money was taken out of the sale of every vaccine. So every vaccine that's administered, a little bit of money comes out and is put in a bucket. That bucket is for the money to pay out for vaccine injury. So parents could go, file a complaint, outline their injury. Doctors goes to VAERS, they go to a system, and they get a payout based on a number of metrics. That's the way VAERS worked beginning in 1986. Since 1986, the pharmaceutical industry has religiously and consistently hacked away at that reporting to the point now where people get an injury and the doctors don't want to admit it's an injury, because if the patient wants to make that complaint, it's a long process. It's not just fill out 15 words on a document. There's a long process that has to happen for that report to be done. So since 1986, what we have is a steady degradation of the reporting process by doctors, and a steady manipulation of a large group of people to say this data is unreliable, unverified. A homeless person could call up and make it. It's not real. We don't know how to utilize the data. And that's all false. So that's one of the things that really needs to be changed here. The perception that this organization, or this system, VAERS, is a bad system. This system was actually used to remove medicines from the market. It was actually used through people complaining about certain drugs, and they say, hey, I'm taking this drug and this drug. Well, now there's an interaction with those drugs, and now doctors know not to prescribe these two drugs based on those VAERS reports. Yeah. So VAERS is extremely important. And what Bobby's trying to do with the presser today is outline that basically that 90% peer-reviewed study for all peer-reviewed studies is all basically manipulated to get a certain end result. He's basically saying we need to go back to the raw data and just take the data for what it is. We all know, I think here, and probably a lot of our listeners and viewers know, that Pfizer tweaked this data for COVID vaccine, 175-year-old company that's one of the largest defrauders in this country. They've paid out more money. The pharmaceutical industry has paid out more money than any other industry since 2000, save banking. Banking and pharma, two most corrupt industries, specifically based on payouts and fines.
Despite the fact that they get off the hook on the vast majority of litigation, and they have lobbying up the wazoo in every direction to protect themselves, just like you're saying. I would be really curious on the statistic of how much lobbying money has been targeted just at VAERS and walking back these vaccine, some amount of safety measures over the years, right? And Kyle, if you want to bring up my screen real quick here, we were talking about how we've walked it all the way to the point now where there's this commonly cited statistic that VAERS only catches 1% of adverse cases at this point. So even though VAERS shows thousands of deaths from the COVID vaccine officially, then the allegation is that that's still only catching 1% of the actual vaccine adverse events. And when you search for something like VAERS catches 1% of events, when you search for that type of keyword, not only are the kind of Google and Brave AIs already kind of skewed to undermine VAERS's credibility, but then there's just an onslaught of articles and blogs. There's a whole website called Vaxopedia, all designed to undermine this statistic that was at first officially published. You can go through article after article after article, all talking about this study that is now not even on the National Vaccine Information Center's website anymore, but you can archive.org that baby and get to the original report that they took down. Wonder why. And you can see where it originally said, likewise, fewer than 1% of vaccine adverse events are reported. And this is an official study. What, Billy, you said it was originally requisitioned by the CDC themselves in 2010?
Yep. So it was done by an outside agency and requisitioned by them specifically due to complaints about the system and everything that was going on since 1986. Yeah. So it was commissioned for that reason.
Yeah. And so that's just to show the level of attack that even the smallest bit of reporting, the smallest bit of accountability is under when we start to come
when
after
was this one done? This was 2011?
2010. Yeah.
This was 2010. So
yeah.
Do we think, has the system improved since then? Probably not.
I doubt it.
I don't think it is. If anybody knows anybody that was vaccine injured, ask them. I know a couple, and no, they weren't. My one of my dad's good friends, he was married to a Democrat. He's a Republican. His wife really wanted him to get it. He didn't want to get it. He went ahead and got it. He immediately got Bell's palsy. So he lost the left side of his face. That was within like a week. And then within a couple weeks, he had made all the side effects, myocarditis, pericarditis, and eventually had to go in to have open heart surgery. This is all within 6 weeks of taking the vaccine. The doctor didn't think it was vaccine related. Like he just, nope, not going to be. And that's part of the issue here is that these doctors, clearly since 2010, but I think even before that, are just unwilling to make the connection if it's more than 15 minutes after the shot. So you get the shot, you go home. Oh, you're just, it's a normal thing. And so as soon as you're past 15 minutes, doctors just don't want to say it's the vaccine. And part of that is
the
the
really hard
pharmaceuticals.
things in that specific regard is that when autism seems to emerge after vaccination, it's not a boom, you have autism. It's always, when you read these reports, when you read people's books, when you talk to moms that have vaccine injured children that have autism, it's always the case, in my experience, where the regression of the child's personality is slow and ongoing over the course of weeks and months. And so it's easy for them to make the case that this is not related to the vaccine. This is just something else. This was always going to develop. This is genetic. This is environment. This is all sorts of anything except for the multi-billion-dollar industry of untested medicines that we just shot into your kid's arm. And so you can see how easy it is for them to make that case that, oh, it's not the vaccines, because it's complicated and it's gradual often. And with autism especially, it is gradual. Most vaccine injuries that are not autism, in my understanding, are often more severe, not more severe, but more immediate or more acute, right? As in, you get a rash, or you get like problems with your muscle structure, or problems with your heart, problems with your, there's all sorts of other things that are acute, but autism is not acute. Autism does not just emerge overnight as the moment you get the vaccine, as far as
that's interesting, because I've heard a bunch of anecdotes, at least, of parents of very young children who got vaccines and said, I noticed a change.
Oh, they notice it right away. Yeah,
like they noticed right away. Like they
within a couple days,
nonverbal, they became less responsive.
But when you read the sort of more detailed accountings of how that goes, it's usually that they get the shot, and then within a couple days, some sort of sickness reaction, often like kind of hives all over the body or a striking fever. Often there's some sort of like illness that's like hits right then. And then from that point onwards, usually, in my understanding of the literature and of these anecdotes, is that then it's like a mother notices right away that it's like something is wrong in my children's eyes, in my child's gait, like in the way they're interacting with me and their response to my touch. But it gradually gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse to whatever point the autism is going to progress, because all autisms progress differently and emerge into different characteristics and different end states as well. So it's a very complicated topic that, if the only thing I think we know for sure is that we don't know shit about it. Like, we don't understand it, and we don't have good data, and we don't have good studies. And to Billy's point, when Billy, you're saying that 90% of studies are getting compromised by money and interests, the thing that we are losing 100% of is trust. Because although we may have lost 90% of the data, we lost 100% of the trust in any data, because for the average person, no one has the skill sets to be able to understand what data is compromised and what data is not. And so you wind up in this just no man's land of anything could be true depending on who's spinning a narrative in front of you.
Yep. And in 1986, there was only a couple of vaccines. Now you're getting, I think the number is like 69 to 72 vaccines by 18. And now another thing, Secretary Kennedy said in the press event today, 25%, and this is up quite a bit, 25% of all autism now is severe, banging head, not toilet trained, nonverbal. So if you look at those numbers, 1 in 12 to 1 in 20,
extremely telepathic,
25% of those being that injured. There's something that I've been saying this last 2 years, and again, I'm kind of relatively new to this level of community, is that in 20 years, we're going to have a different kind of issue in this country with that many people with autism being born now. So when I'm 73, 20 years from now, that's going to be a very different country when people are 20 to 40 years old with that kind of number and that kind of number of people in the population that have severe autism.
So speaking of which, Kyle, thanks for bringing this comment up. I've been watching Muhammad get progressively more impatient with us. What do we do? What do we do?
It starts here, right? We talk.
Yeah, we talk. And you make personal choices about your personal medical decisions. We are not doctors, and we're not giving you medical advice, but you think very carefully before you give your child anything, be it food or poison, depending how you read that label. any medicines or poisons, depending how you judge that technology or medicine, you just think really carefully about what you're giving to your children, because you can't trust the manufacturers, you can't trust the regulators, you can't really trust anyone until you really do some research. And I think the one person you can trust the most is moms and parents, for the most part. That's probably one of the most trustworthy sources. But unfortunately, a lot of moms and parents are not experts. And so we're left in this limbo where we're discussing, and that's why we're all so excited about the idea that Bobby and his team might actually get something done here, because without some sort of transparency, accountability, and trust in our government to help with this, we really are kind of lost in this no man's land. And that's why they're pushing back so hard on it.
Yeah, totally. And one thing I'll say is, like, even Bobby, we can't trust blindly, right?
Yep.
And there have been moves early on that people are very concerned about. And so it's still promising. Like, he's shaken up the staff. He's announced these studies. He had this big press conference where he's included the inadequacy of the VAERS data and stuff like that. But even if you do feel good about the direction he's going, you stay loud. If you're scared, if you're worried, if you're concerned, you stay loud. Because even if he has every intention of following through, public pressure supports that work.
Yeah. Kyle, bring my screen up one more time real quick here, because one thing that always gives me hope that we're on the right track is when Bobby gets a lot of really negative press calling him a conspiracy theorist and an anti-vaxxer. I know we're doing something right. So when you search Kennedy comes out about autism, the first two, BBC and Newsweek, are relatively unbiased reports. And then RFK Jr.'s questionable claims about the causes of autism. RFK Jr. sensationally claims 5 toxins in every day. RFK Jr. giving families false hope on autism. So that is very that makes me optimistic. That makes me feel good, because
the narrative
news machine is getting scared. That to me indicates that something's getting done, right? Or at least that they're worried that something might get done. So kudos for that.
And side note, Destiny here is reminding us that she's a COVID researcher. Destiny, I sent you the link to the StreamYard.
Jump in if you want, Destiny. It'd be great to have you.
Dude. Get in here
until she shows up. Until she shows up, Peter Pandolfo said they're attacking our genetics. Actually, one of the things that Bobby mentioned is that the NIH spent 10 to 20 times the funding to study genetic causes of autism, which is kind of a dead end. Yeah. So one thing I'll say about this, and Children's Health Defense recently sent out an email saying, vaccines cause autism. And I responded and basically said, the word of the day is trigger. And the reason why I say that is kind of what you were kind of alluding to there, Ian. A child's body is like a fish tank, right? You got a drop of the red dye, you got the Cheerios, you got one vaccine, you got too much sugar, you got the card, you got the glyphosate in the bread, you got the school lunch with all the preservatives. And then that vaccine at this one time, that just was the 15th drop of bleach that kills the fish. It's so I look at this like, and so what Peter's talking about there, going after the genetics, what does that do? That says that you are the parent, you're bad. It's in you. You brought this to the table, and it's nothing that we shot into your kid. So what Peter is saying is correct. They are coming after
massive red herring right there. Yep. And certainly there's probably genetic predispositions. There's certainly genetics that play into how sensitive you are. How
Vanessa has a question about genetics,
right? Are there not superhuman genetics though that can overpower the vaccines? I mean, probably. Like, certainly different people's genetics are capable of different things.
Well, and the fact that autism isn't 100% an outcome of vaccines suggests that like there is some resilience, and it's not 100%. Yeah. The issue that a lot of people are having is how many negative, like adverse experiences are happening that seem to be underreported, and that can't go on forever without enough people starting to sort of shout from the mountaintops about it.
Yeah, there's two cohorts within this space that are very impressive. One is in 1992, Japan stopped the MMR vaccine. They just stopped it because they were having too much injury. Very smart people. They only have 3% of their population overweight. They notice when stuff changes. They said, stop the MMR. They also don't manipulate parents to vaccinate before the age 2. In fact, most people there give their baby a chance to get past a certain age before they start to vaccinate. That precious little child gets to develop immune system. So if you are on the side that you need to give your child a vaccine, in Japan, they wait. Do you guys know what their vaccine or their autism rate is? It's 1 in 160 currently today. You couple that with our numbers. Since 1992, our vaccine rate has just gone up. We've given them more vaccines, more bad food, terrible food in school, removing them from the sun. If you look at what Japan does with their lunch program, think about the food that they eat. Their food for their kids are much better. So that's why I say it's triggering. If you look at what a country like Japan does, that's an amazing cohort compared to our cohort. Another very interesting one, and Secretary Kennedy has talked about this on the campaign trail, is the Amish. So the Amish don't vaccinate. They drink raw milk. They grass-fed and finished beef, make a lot of their own food, don't use a lot of preservatives, out in the field all day, don't use a lot of electronics, Wi-Fi, that stuff. They do a little bit, but not as much as some families, the rest of the families in the country. Theirs, depending on what study you look, is somewhere between 1 in 300 and 1 in 400. The latest one that I looked at was 1 in 360. So if you take those two cohorts that don't vaccinate or vaccinate in a completely different scenario and delay just on those two cohorts, you should be able to come to the conclusion that there's something going on with our vaccines and food.
Yeah, it's like 10 times less autism. So
and what was that statistic? I've heard that at one point, I don't remember how many years ago, it was actually like 1 in 10,000.
1 in 10,000 was autism in the country in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's interesting that now a positive comparison or a place that we're comparing positively is 1 in 160 or whatever.
You might almost ask if there's something getting sprayed in the air, Damo. Funny that you mentioned that.
Well, that's a segue.
Should we move? I think just before we move in there, we're just going to take a little breather, and we're just going to enjoy this little piece of content here.
Yeah.
Because, this is just the power. I just want a quick segue into the power of mimetic warfare and the right to bear memes. And memes are our friends. They can really influence culture. They can reach people who are otherwise unreachable. So keep the memes flowing. Keep the memes going.
1829, cotton producers started crushing cotton seeds for oil. They sold it as engine lubricant, and some guy said, hey, maybe we could eat the oil. Yeah, let's eat it. In 1911, Crisco, massive flea market, their cottonseed oil. Everyone ate Crisco, oh yeah. Now in 2024, we all eat a 5-ton of oil. Corn, canola, soy, sunflower oil. Humans never ate this much linoleic acid. Now our bodies are 5 times as much linoleic acid as is natural. That's a lot of Foot King vegetable. Should we eat engine oil? Maybe, maybe not. 1829, cotton producers started.
Dude, people always lose their minds when they don't realize what the original use case of the technology of extracting seed oils came from. It always blows people's minds.
Yeah, canola, rapeseed oil, also an engine oil, right?
Yeah,
engine lubricant.
So that one, people are asking, where is that? That one is, here's the X account, Fight with Memes.
Shout out to Fight with Memes.
Real foods. Shout out to Fight Real Memes.
They get what 5th generation warfare is all
Let's
about.
Grow. And then Truthful Troll says, shout to artist Ko Bin Lao.
I see just above Truthful, Vanessa's asking a question that Bobby actually directly addressed today, and I don't know the truth of it, but maybe it's just that we're doing better screenings, that we're just finding them better. And Bobby's counter argument to that is that if it's true, where are all the older autistics? And like, where are they? And I imagine there might be good responses to that, but I don't know what they are.
Well, here's a response to that, and something that comes up when you start to search these kinds of articles, and something that gets manipulated by the media a lot. And it's, it's touchy and it's complicated. But a lot of people these days that are diagnosed autistic are spectrum, as in they are fully functioning like normal-ish people that are just like weird and love and awesome.
I was diagnosed last year.
Their own kind of thing. They're not banging their head into the wall. They're not, nonverbal. They're not smearing feces. They're not running away apparently randomly. They're not telepathic. Look into the telepathy tapes. There's all these other things that do not go with sort of these, like, I hate to say low level autism, but like spectrum autisms that have now the autism spectrum. I start to question, now that we're looking at autism today, I question the reason why the autism spectrum became a spectrum, because these like lower spectrum autisms, they are a legitimate condition that you do live with, and they certainly affect your life. And I'm not saying that you don't count, but it's not the same as a vaccine injury that causes an autism, or even an autism that we don't know how it was caused, that is absolutely debilitating and causes the entire family to rearrange their entire life around this child forever, lest the child die or, severely injure themselves and all these other things. And so there's an element where when we look around the adult population, those like lower spectrum autisms are just Elon Musk's walking around. Like, they're just regular people that were very different, that grew up into adults that learned to deal with who they were. Just like ADHD was never diagnosed, but there's lots of older people that would have been diagnosed with ADHD, and their brains probably still kind of works that way, and they've learned to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Right?
You're describing dad or granddad that has his like obsession with his model train set.
Exactly. And so it's like there's an element where I would imagine that we are in some ways over-diagnosing autism, and it's muddying the data a little bit in the sense that the definition has changed dramatically. But it still is pretty clear that the amount of autistic children that are deeply, like severely debilitatingly autistic has risen dramatically, as well as the whole spectrum, apparently to go with it. So it's complicated. And I start to question the whole purpose behind creating the spectrum, possibly having to do with muddying these waters as well. And that's just my theory. I'm just speculating.
Well, and then when we add as well, like the data that's showing in California, the rates are so high. I lived in Carlsbad, California, and have children, and the vaccine requirements there are enforced and pushed on the children and the parents probably harder than anywhere else in the country. So the correlation between, the campaign on behalf of the state to vaccinate the children and this autism epidemic, and even if autism is a catch-all for many different things, it's likely correlated. But that I do think that if you make the spectrum big enough, the basket just gets bigger, and then that number goes up. That can also be used to create kind of a sense of fear and danger as well. I want to share this as well. This Sire G put this picture out. This is a bag of fluoride looks like.
For real?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude. I'm not surprised. It's poison. It's toxic.
Straight up toxic, skull and crossbones. And this is the shit they are dumping into our water supplies. An otherwise byproduct of chemical manufacturing or aluminum manufacturing or materials manufacturing.
I mean, it was used as a poison gas in World War I, if I'm not incorrect.
That's wild. I actually keep a bag of this in my cupboard right next to the flower.
Yeah, so in the recent Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Suzanne, I forget her last name,
Humphreys.
she talked about, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys talked about how vaccines, the mercury in vaccines, like when you drop like when you drop that in a laboratory, you need to like hazmat that up because there's mercury in it. And it's like the only place we allow mercury is in vaccines. Otherwise, it is an extreme, and we don't, it's not in every vaccine anymore. Let's be clear. But there's these like toxic ingredients that are getting just slotted into like health products and like safety and our water that are literal poisons that we know are poisons. And they've somehow finagled some like scientific argument to try to convince everyone that we should be forced to consume these things.
Interesting concept. Does anyone think
let's be clear, lead paint is also super.
Every time I think about lead paint, I think about that article in Mother Jones from like 15, 20 years ago that just dove so deep into the data about lead exposure. It was called something like Lead, the Real Criminal Element. And it showed data that can pinpoint down to a 1 block radius changes in crime rates with a 20-year delay.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember that now that you're mentioning it.
Yeah, that just hit me hard. And I don't know if any of it's been debunked or anything like that, but it really hit me hard when I read it.
Well, you know what hit me hard when I read it was the congressional study that was done on baby formula and baby food that found more than 100% over the legal limits of heavy metals like lead and cadmium and all these other heavy metals in our baby foods, in all of the name brand corporate baby foods that are in some cases the only option on a grocery store shelf.
Yep.
We are literally feeding lead and cadmium and arsenic to our babies in our baby food. And it was shown in the study, or rather it was just said outright in the study. It wasn't even shown because it was like already the status quo, that the companies were testing their own baby food, finding out that their own baby food had hundreds of percentages over the legal limits of these products, these metals, and then still selling them because they were the ones determining the safety factors and whether or not they were allowed to sell their own products. And
right.
It's just like so many levels of deranged.
Yeah. And it's not even just baby food, because I know like chocolate's a great example. Even some seemingly really good brands of chocolate have problematic levels of cadmium and maybe even lead, or I can't remember.
Chocolate's problematic because it absorbs it, is my understanding, is that the chocolate plant absorbs heavy metals from the ground, right?
Here's a good question. Or like, they know what they're doing. I'll just say, do they know what they're doing? Like, do these companies actually
I think there's
know?
A ton of examples of them. And I think Ian just gave one, right? Like, I think in most examples, they do know what they're doing. And this makes me think of that scene in Fight Club where they're talking about the car recalls. Like, they do the math. Yeah. And if the class action lawsuit costs less than fixing the cars, they just let people die and pay off the class action.
Exactly.
And I think it's a very similar phenomenon here.
There's also another layer to that question. I mean, that's like kind of the conspiracy question, right? And there's layers to that, in that a lot of people are just motivated by profits. And like Damo, you just perfectly elucidated how it's more profitable to the average, capitalist to keep making money, to keep selling the baby food, to keep selling the cars. But I think the real question there is like, is there a secret shadowy cabal of BlackRock board members intentionally poisoning everyone with this company so that then they can intentionally sell the medicine with that company?
I was just thinking about that, right?
The answer is probably not. But I always remind myself, and I try to remind others, that you don't need everyone to think that way for there to be a problem with people thinking that way. Because if one person that is high up on a board of directors thinks that way, they might have enough power and sway to not even say it out loud, but to just go and sort of, encourage those guys to do that thing and encourage those guys to do that thing. And so I'm not saying that there is, I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be the Illuminati for there to be a certain level of actual intention about those things. Is it only takes a couple of key individuals that are already, multi-billionaires and probably relatively corrupt, evil people doing horrible things in other areas of their lives. And if you get 3 or 4 or 5 of those dudes in one room together, you've got a pretty bad mixture for the world. And I don't doubt that that's possible. And it's kind of neither here nor there, because it's happening one way or another. And the solution doesn't matter if there is a cabal around a table planning this shit, because the solution is grassroots from the bottom. It's never going to come from
the
those
answer.
guys.
The work is the same. The answer is the same.
I mean, there might be like, those the top of the pyramid or the spider, if you will. But there's a lot of good people that, are just trying to make product and using the ingredients, and guess what? All the ingredients are containing a bunch of poison.
Yeah. But
do they actually even know? Are they actually even testing their shit properly? Like, probably not.
Right.
I mean, Kelly brings up a great point in the comments here too, that actually in capitalism, in our modern form, not the way it was intended, but in the modern kind of oligarchical form of capitalism, ever since the Dodge v. Ford ruling, they are legally obligated to operate in the best interest of their shareholders. And so if the fact is that they'll make more money by selling us poison, they are legally required to sell us poison, and they will lose their jobs and get sued, et cetera, et cetera. If they
and can even face criminal liability.
Exactly.
And it's not just the benefit of their shareholders. It's at this point quarterly profits. So they can't even think of their shareholders in the long term and think, if we made better products, healthier products, that would be better in the long term.
Well, to be clear, we are not their shareholders. The big banks are their top shareholders.
Exactly.
That's why I always rail against many corporations.
Exactly. But I do want to give one example just to swing back here. And this doesn't necessarily like prove cabal. That's not my point here. But talking about companies that, like, one company will do one bad thing because it can increase profits for another company. And we talk about this a lot on the Midday Mahas, glyphosate. Yeah. So Monsanto is the big producer of glyphosate. Monsanto was bought by Bayer. Glyphosate has been shown to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Bayer has a treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but I'm just saying it's a great business model.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of business model, this is another comment that really got me going and touches me, because I had my kids at a church down here in Florida.
Oh.
And they took, like, it's Florida's so natural and so lovely. And at this church playground for basically a daycare when the children were very young, the playground was full of this rubber flooring, basically like synthetic mulch. So it was a way, in my opinion, that, profiteers, capitalists, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to say, looked at like waste rubber, tires, etc., like waste plastics, and figured, how can we upsell this and make it into something? It's recycling, it's reusing.
Yep.
I remember going there on a hot day and being like, goodness gracious, this smell coming off of this. And I am at 6 feet tall, so I am up here. But my boy at this time is like 1 year old, like 1 in 3. So he's way down there, and they're all way down there, and they're playing in that shit all day long.
Right, they're rolling around in it. And then brings up a great point: recycled tires. Like tires have the chemicals that are turning the frogs gay.
and then other schools, like at a really conscious Montessori too, like they have this natural mulch, and that's great. But people are complaining about the mulch. You know why they complain about the mulch? Because it gets in the kids' shoes. So let's move to to an Astro.
So inconvenient.
Let's move to these other ones. Fortunately, they didn't do that, and they're just like, it's okay to have the natural to do that. But
we're asking if that mulch is treated, by the way, because it might be chemically treated.
I mean, all across America, they've changed all the playgrounds from traditionally wood and metal and rope playgrounds to plastic and rubber and soft floors. And they're not as dangerous as they used to be, but they're still pretty dangerous. And that's
making the kids soft is what it is, man. We used to
making the ground soft, but wood and metal, and then with the sun, especially in the heat too. People are cooking. You're sliding on the slides all day. It's a lot of like plastic exposure, and are your kids going to get autism by using the slides? Like, no, it's not going to happen. But the shit adds up. As Bobby says, we're living in a toxic soup of chemicals, and this is what we need to really.
I mean, specifically to what Damo was just saying about tires, I was like, man, I want to look that up. I'm curious. And if you want to pull up my screen here, Kyle, it's literally, I mean, this is just one study, and it's just one of the first ones I found. And obviously, science takes more than one study, but the very first study I found, which is from 2021, and they were studying minnows, and what happens when you drive cars on the road and micro tire particles leach off your tire, get into water supplies. How does that affect fish and marine wildlife? And it showed that we observed, quote, a decrease in embryonic heart rates, hatching success, and lengths, as well as an increase in the number of embryos with severe deformities and diminished eye and body pigmentation after exposure to the tire particles. And I assume that that's after leaching for 1, 3, and 10 days based on 10D. But just to say that, like, the environment is so complex, and once you start introducing man-made chemicals and objects and things like that we would never foresee at first, like back in, I don't know, the 1800s, whenever tires were invented, 1700s, we never would have been thinking about the little micro particulates that are coming off of those tires and getting into the water and getting into the soil and all these other things. And it's just like, playing with nature is so complicated, and it's so hard for us to foresee all the outcomes. And when you have a multi-billion-dollar tire industry, as one example, that grows up before we start to realize an issue, suddenly you're fighting a multi-billion-dollar industry about that issue from the start.
Totally.
Right?
And then
you just burn them too. You just have a good old tire fire. And then, and then there's other people that, like, are building houses out of them. And I feel like if you make an earth chip with tires, but you're not actually like exposed to it, maybe that sounds like a good thing. But if you think about just all the cars on the road and that slow degradation of tires on the roads, it's hot most days, but then guess what happens? You get a big storm, the wash, it cleans it out. Yep. It's a little slippery. All that, flows in. Ultimately, it enters the water supply. It enters the water. We're then drinking that stuff. So, it's the full spectrum approach. And guess what? We're not getting rid of tires anytime soon.
Well, and I
need a couple new tires right now.
Well, and look, I've heard tell, and I don't know if it's true, that they've known how to make tires that don't degrade so much, that are like almost like lifetime of the vehicle kind of tires for a very long time.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Right. But like, just to circle back on the whole like quarterly profit thing, to turn a consumable good into a durable good goes against the interests of the shareholder profit. So they literally are obliged not to do so. And, you get into sayings like they don't make them like they used to. We used to have appliances made in the good old US of A that would last forever. And they were made out of like steel. They were made out of like solid metals, and they would last forever. And they were great. And now you replace your shitty $20 coffee pot every year, because if a part on it breaks, it's so cheap, you just toss it on, buy another one.
Yep.
I'm so not cool with this business dynamic. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, Vanessa keeps pointing out just how all these elements of how complicated the ecosystem is, how complicated the environment is. And I mean, I hate to go there, but it sort of just comes back to whatever religion you believe in. It's like things that were made by God or by evolution or by nature. Those things are so complex, and we don't even begin to understand that complexity. And we're introducing these just like man-made, like chemicals and technologies and materials that just botch everything up in every direction, basically.
Yeah, and I'm not anti-tech at all. I think we actually have every capability of generating technology, like really beautiful technology that is aligned with nature. I love the idea of like biomimicry, for instance. And
you mean like aligned with blocking off the sun, because nature has the sun, right? And it would be good for us to block it off to mimic clouds, right?
Yeah, you get it.
Like that.
You get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I figured that if God made the stars and the sun and the sky and the earth and all this great stuff, if it all evolved just this way, then we should probably evolve technologies to alter that and change that, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about what's going on with the recent weather modification bills that are getting passed.
Florida HB 477 weather modification bill that's going on right now. You can go to flhouse.gov and search for that bill. It's funny. Some of the states that see states coming up like Florida with their weather modification bill. There's two. There's a Senate bill, and then there's the advanced bill, which is HB 477. States like Florida are like, stop this stuff in our skies, stop the weather modification, stop potentially directing tornadoes or hurricanes or whatever else is going on. They're just using the weather mod as the name of the bill to keep it kind of more politically correct. You've got all of these other states and, quite frankly, entities like CNN basically ridiculing these states. Like, states are trying to outlaw something that's a conspiracy and that doesn't actually exist, which is kind of fascinating on multiple levels, to have our country being completely divided on science, technology, medicine, and food. I mean, it's literally, it's states' rights. It's becoming like you gotta go to the state that's protecting your skies, your food, and your water. So that's one of the bills that's probably going on around the country, but it's happening in multiple states, very similar to the Monsanto Protection Act.
And Kyle, you want to just flash the screen on real quick for HB 477, just so people can see the Florida Senate website here, because Billy, there's we were looking for this
bill, but hold on 1 second.
Oh, yo, Destiny, how you doing?
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hey, Des.
Good to see the crew again.
Hell yeah.
Good to have Destiny on the club. For anyone that's not familiar with Destiny, you should follow Desi Rezi on X. She's an incredible researcher. She digs into things like vaccines, digs into things like government, like not conspiracy, like the real government stuff going on, and agencies, the works. And I think, Destiny, you probably know a little bit about weather modification as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you would guess right. Yes, I do.
Yo, I'm going to show my Twitter too. There, I just changed my.
Yeah, get it.
What's up? Follow me on Twitter, y'all. At Boldly
I didn't
Gross.
know that we could change our names.
You can change your names.
Dang.
All right, Ian, I'm going to add you to this. Here you go.
Yeah, so this is just so people can see the Florida State Senate website, House Bill 477. And Billy, we were talking about how this is a modification of another bill. Is that correct?
Yeah, SB 56.
Yeah, Senate Bill 56, geoengineering and weather modification activities, is now being modified by HB 477, weather modification activities. And you can see all the updates on the bill, the history, the bill text, amendments, etc. on that website.
Yeah, another guy who's been really cooking and really grateful for his follow is Sire G.
Page.
What happened? It disappeared?
It's a one-page bill?
Am I wrong? Right now.
It says page one of one. Let's go with the one-page bills, guys.
Yeah.
Let's get
Section
it.
1. Do not do this.
It's not complicated to stop
goes into effect
the planet. Any person conducting a weather modification operation without first having procured a license, or who makes a false statement in his or her application for license, or who fails to file any reports as required by. Well, that's interesting. That implies that people are doing this secretly or without consulting the government, and that private corporations are just modifying the weather in Florida, I would assume. Otherwise, why would they be wording it like that?
Right. And on the flip side, I'm curious about what that licensing process might be, because that reminds me of how they backdoor banned hemp and cannabis early in the 1900s. They passed the Cannabis Tax Act, and you had to get a tax stamp to be allowed to grow it, and then they just didn't give any out.
That's a good point.
Where do I apply for a license?
Yeah, for real. I do worry too that maybe, the fine not exceeding $10,000 is not
that's weak.
enough.
That's weak.
That's pretty weak. Let's talk about criminal culpability and jail time, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Although each such violation shall be a separate offense, that does help a little.
It does.
Take effect July 1st, 2025. Clear sky summer coming to a Florida near you.
Yeah, and now, Billy, did you say this passed?
Hot sun summer in Florida.
Did this pass both the House and the Senate? Is it being signed by DeSantis?
That's a good question. Billy, do you have beta on that?
I don't. I think it's coming up. It's not passed yet. It's
okay.
like,
The recent thing that I see is added to state affairs committee agenda.
Yeah, and their session doesn't go that much longer, so it'd be interesting.
No, it's pretty quick. It's like it might even be this week.
Yeah.
It's coming up really fast.
It's
one thing I'll say
reading
about that.
on the second, so
The people that are doing the spraying, they're up. Those planes are up really high, and I bet they're laughing at this. They're probably like, "Huh, try to catch us." You know, we're gonna.
yeah, that
continue
does make
spraying.
me worried.
You know,
But I mean, all the planes are recorded, right? Like, you know, the air
That's
traffic
true.
is something that is very transparent.
That's true.
So it's like, you know, especially when I look up and you see, like, I woke up in the morning the other day and it was literally like line, and then the crosses all came and they were literally doing probably like 5% of Florida in one like big operation, and it was early in the morning, and then it stopped, but then, like, you know, they built their big cloud, you know, that then slowly diffused and fell as well. So,
You know, I'm seeing some pretty wild stuff. Speaking of that sort of thing, y'all remember the fog? That weird fog that was getting sprayed.
Yeah, I
out?
got it here in Virginia. It was
I've been
bad.
seeing-
Oh yeah.
yeah, I've been
The
seeing
fluffy
Health
fog.
Ranger. I've been seeing Health Ranger post about research he's been doing on it, and I don't know if any of this is real or accurate, but he said that he's been like cultivating some of the stuff he found, and it's biological, like bits of it are hatching, and he's taking pictures every day to show the
Whoa, share my
hatching of this
screen.
stuff. Yo, do this. I don't know what's real. I really don't, but it's fast.
Remember
Mike
those
Adams
buffalo
does have a
masses that
laboratory.
looked
Like, he is
small
capable
eggs
of doing it.
found
Yeah,
in the
he has
weird
a lab.
fog?
weird
Chemtrails
fog.
fallout sample from Dr. Jane Ruby. Well, I've been incubating the sample for about a week at human body temperature in saline solution to mimic human chemistry. Guess what? They're hatching. I don't know what this means.
I mean, it might be sensationalism, it might be bullshit, but I got my popcorn because that's some crazy shit.
Health Ranger's account is fun, and I do like him. I don't know about the veracity of his claims,
Right.
but you know, you can get your tinfoil out, wrap it around your body, and then go down that rabbit hole for yourself.
yeah, I remember. I mean, I was right in that fog heavy on New Year's Eve. I'm driving home, and it was almost like it was snowing. It was definitely thicker than, you know, your traditional fog that you'd see.
Did you breathe deep, bro?
Don't inhale. So, Destiny, I'd be curious, since you just joined the panel, I'd be curious to hear your take on the state of Maha today. If you had to, like, kind of summarize a couple of things that got you psyched and a couple of things that got you bummed, how are you feeling about Maha so far and about what RFK has been doing recently? And like how optimistic are you at this point?
You're muted.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll be honest, because that's what I'm going to do.
We're all being honest out here.
You know, I'm an advocate for the vaccine injured, so my scope comes from that ground of what they need, and from that perspective, I'm disappointed. I really was hoping to hear more about taking down the shots, about slowing down or completely stopping the mRNA platform.
Yeah.
For the simple fact that we still don't have long-term data. We don't even have medium-term data. We have at the best short-term data, which is roughly 2 to 5 years. So, I mean, we're still in the short-term data phase. And, you know, it's been pretty quiet. It's been pretty quiet on Capitol Hill about the shots. And that's been really disappointing. There has been wins that I think everybody's excited about. Calling out fluoride is a huge win. Huge win. I think that needs to go. Red dye 40 needs to go. I'm glad those things are getting looked into. But from the perspective of somebody who's since day one been against these mRNA shots, it's been disappointing. But I have a lot of hope, and I see the thing changing, because we had Mary Kelly Bowden, Dr. Bowden on Tucker just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Fantastic. That's a huge win. We're seeing the conversation slowly trickle to what I want to see, which is the vaccine injured getting a spotlight. Where, you know, we get the doctors now that we, you know, started off with the really top tier like Robert Malone, and now we're getting into the ones who were actually persecuted and their licenses were stripped. And I think next step will be vaccine injured. That's my hope. And we can get these people some help, and we can get these shots stopped, which I think a lot of the Maha movement is people who support removing these shots from the market.
Yeah, and growing every day, I think, as as the shots work their way into people's bodies and do what they're going to do to people, right? Have you dug into the new CDC director at all and her former work at ARPA-H and
Of course I have.
ARPA-H's work on mRNA technologies? Could you tell us a little bit about where the government is trying to take the mRNA technology and the platform in general?
Oh, goodness. This is a long conversation, and one that, of course, people like Whitney Webb had the forefront on. She called this out before years ago. And Monterez, her name's Susan Monterez. She is a former ARPA-H director. And ARPA-H essentially sounds like DARPA because it's similar to DARPA. How they do their contracts, how they do their other transactional agreements are set up to be very similar to DARPA, which means it skirts the line between intelligence and technology. So they get a lot of their portfolio from the idea of progression, not necessarily progression with safety, but progression. And so she's done TED Talks. I've listened to her talk in ARPA-H that they're very much supporters of what I think an average person would consider transhumanism. There's very much the Neuralink kind of route they want to go, digitalizing the human genome. These are things that make people like myself a little nervous, and she's all for it. And we see this kind of convergence of the CDC now and the FDA, which has always long been a racket. The FDA has overstepped. There's a reason why all the poisons are in all the foods and cosmetics, because it's Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. People forget that it means the stuff you put on your face has the same level of care that goes into your body, and it's very, very dangerous. But we're seeing it all grow in one area. And In-Q-Tel's former president, Chris Darby, said it best, that the intelligence community's number one focus is individualized human biogenome data. And so we're seeing everything kind of push towards this digitalization of medical records, of your human genome, and just in general, kind of like it'll be an all access everything e-health file, essentially, that will be like the vaccine passport thing. They're all kind of converging with the Palantir backing, and Monterez is the perfect person to usher that in because she has the ARPA-H background that she has. She also has worked with DARPA and the Biological Technology Office. So, and they're the ones that are doing the mind to prosthetic robot, interventions, and they're doing a lot of work and transhumanistic things. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I'll say that much.
Yep. Yeah, I share your feelings. There's one ARPA-H program that got me especially concerned, where they're trying to devise a pill you can swallow full of nano robots that will conduct nano surgery inside of your body. What could possibly go wrong?
There's a book. I did a thread on this, of course. The transhumanist Bible, a lot of people would consider, would be the Singularity book by Kurzweil, right? That was a huge fan, and Harari was absolutely motivated by that book to continue doing what he does. And in that book, they list the name of only one biological company that's working today that they thought would usher in transhumanism via the cell, right? For changing and delivering nanomaterial via packets of information and all this new technology they're talking about, integrating the Internet of Bodies. And they list one company, and that company that they listed was Nanotherapeutics, which just so happened to change their name in 2020 to Resilience.
No
and
way.
Made all of Moderna. Yes, I'll send you the thread. And they're the company that made every single one of the 480 million doses of Moderna that was administered in this country.
Yeah, and they did it with the help of the CIA, with the director of In-Q-Tel on their board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb sits on the board of that company as well, and also Susan Desmond-Hellmann from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yep.
So have your answers right there.
Cool.
So you were talking about a cabal, Ian?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't say it. You said it. I'm not that guy, bro. I'm just a journalist, man.
Okay.
I mean, conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Just checking.
What's your take on Trump fast tracking H1N1 mRNA coupled with Susan Monterez coming in? Is this a money play on his side? Has he been co-opted? Is there something devious going on, or what exactly is happening here?
It could be taken multiple ways. Since I don't have a one-way track into Trump's mind, I'll never be able to know for certain, and I think it's dangerous for me to say otherwise. I don't know for certain. But what I will say is that there is a really small niche of overlap in Trump's first administration with this administration. They're not in the same positions, so people didn't really notice, but there's people like Michael Kratsios, who was his former CTO, who is now the Officer of Science Technology Policy, right? Which they're directing. He's the one who brought in the 5G mainframe for the United States. He brought that in. He's also was the head of like Operation Warp Speed when it first started. There's a lot of like kind of growing overlap. And what I see Trump do the best is he's a businessman. He's absolutely a businessman. He's about business and legacy. That is what he cares about. And I think that business wise, he has a lot of people in his ear that are also very good at business, like Peter Thiel, and who Michael Kratsios works on one of his boards. That they've been 10 years. He was the chief of staff for him. So he's got a lot of these people that they're good at business. They're absolutely good at business. Might not be healthy business, but they're good at business. And I think that if he doesn't see an outright problem with that technology advancing, that he's not going to discount the benefit that could come from the business. I think that that's possible for Trump to say, if there's no one, because we haven't tried this vaccine yet, we don't know if it's going to be dangerous. So there's no guarantee it's bad. But if he can find guarantees from his staff that this is beneficial for us, at least to be safe, ahead of time, or to have it in the strategic national stockpile, which is a whole racket on its own in terms of money. Right now, it could be co-opted. I'm hoping it's not. I'm on the fence. I voted for Trump. I'm hoping that's not the case. But I'm not a fan of the self-assembling mRNA that they're doing with H3N2. It's not a threatening virus to our country. It never has been. So if anything, it'll get produced with our money, but I don't think there's going to be a large uptake in it anyways. I think what Ian said hours ago, that we've lost the trust in the medical system, that's going to weigh a lot on whether or not these products will ever actually get consumed. And I think Trump is aware of that even if we do put money into it to satisfy this lobbyist and this lobbyist, nobody in America is going to take that anyways.
Well,
and I think he's aware of that.
They're going to put it into our food and into our livestock so that we don't even have to take it. If folks out there aren't familiar with Zoetis is one of the largest livestock pharmaceutical companies in America. They share board members with BlackRock and with Pfizer, and they're particularly good at vaccinating our cattle. And then I'm not actually sure, Destin, you might have more beta on the programs where they're trying to invent vaccinations that go into food that can then be consumed by us. But that shit's scary. That's super scary.
Yeah, well, and then there's this notion too of just like branding these as vaccines as well.
Yeah.
Well said. And there's a part of me too that I want to give the technologists a little bit of credit here, because a lot of these technologies are pushing the bounds of what people thought could ever be possible. And they're entering into some very interesting new areas. And I do not think that those who will really are seeking this technology from, maybe an immortality perspective, or like fighting aging or fighting death, or the don't die kind of agenda. I don't think they're not looking at this technology as vaccines. They're looking at this as, how is this going to make me live forever? And one of the benefits of deploying this technology en masse is to have a lot of testing. So I think they actually have excellent data themselves on how it reacted across many different groups, and the effect of it. I think they also sold a shit ton of saline shots at full price and just made a ton of money.
Do we have any data on that? Did that ever get proven?
None. No, I
do.
Yeah.
On that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yes, I do.
How do?
Talk to us about saline for a second.
Drop some knowledge bombs on
before the saline. Just to close the loop here. Just to land this, as we'd say, they established large treasuries towards funding this technological advancement that they will use on themselves. And with all of their data and their genomic data, I believe that this technology can be applied safely. It can also be a weapon, but it can also be a superhuman technology. And I believe this is also what Elon talks about in his.
See, I would have to see the data on it being applied safely before I'd be willing to agree, because I have not yet seen a single application of an mRNA technology that was safe, right? We have a lot of data of mRNA technology being unsafe, but I haven't seen a single one that has the safety profile of Tylenol, and Tylenol kills people, right? Like, as you know what I'm saying? As in, like, in theory, you're right. Like, in theory, this could change the world. Like CRISPR can change the world. There's all these technologies that are awesome that can change the world. And actually, like, cell phones is a good example. Like, 4G, 3G, 4G, 5G, great technology, changed the world. But more and more, we're starting to realize that, like, all of those technologies are also harming us. And it's like, I don't know about, like, how do you even define safely? And with mRNA specifically, it's like, is the cost that we're seeing with the current type of mRNA technology, is that cost acceptable? Because in my mind, it's not. But I don't know if we have any data, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if we have any data from any mRNA technology platform that has shown a safety profile that's at all acceptable in my mind.
And I will, on the notion too of, like, is it safe? There is this, this ultra elite cabal, if you will, that that they'll test openly on the people. They don't. There is no care for. There's no care,
which is unethical in the extreme.
Absolutely, it's
to that point. Both your points right here.
There's no regard for humanities.
To both of your points right here, one thing that I've had for probably 10 or 15 years, from working with several people, hearing some stories. One was a veteran that had $150,000 in stuff in his body to combat pain. It was a long procedure. If you look at the mRNA vaccine tech, could we potentially be witnessing a testing study for 8 billion people where the technology is actually being tested en masse across 8 billion people so that the elite can figure out what works, so that as we die off, I know it's a little crazy, but they can use this tech in a way that actually saves them. So we are the guinea pigs for a period of 100 years while this tech get works and works and works. These studies aren't 100 people, 200 people. I mean, the MMR study, I think, was like 800 people. It was a really small number of people. And then they said it's safe. Now we have this tech that can be something amazing for our genetics, supposedly, but it's being tested on us and we're getting major issues. So is this a testing ground for the rich?
That's a very good point, Billy.
It's a hard question.
I think you might be smoking crack, Billy. No, just kidding. I mean, these are the sorts
Human
of things that do scare me.
Cyborgs, man, bear, pig.
At this point, man, smoking
Cereal.
crack sounds about as safe as taking any product that Big Pharma puts out. So, I mean, call me crazy, but Destiny, are you over there pulling up saline solution studies? Is that what I'm seeing you doing over there?
I am, because I found this contract. There's a government contract system called the Federal Procurement Data System, which I happen to nerd out on quite frequently. And they list every single, what the title says, federally procured contract. It has to go onto this data system, and they have to be on there within 24 hours of the contract being made. And it's an incredible use for the fellow researchers out there. It's a little hard to figure out how to use, but if I can figure out how to use it, you'll figure it out. And so I was on there looking through all the Operation Warp Speed contracts, and I came across, and I believe it was Pfizer, but it could have been Resilience, but it was one of the two. And it was $20 million for the contract on Operation Warp Speed contract for $20 million of pure saline injections. And so I remember thinking, why would they need $20 million worth of saline injections that wouldn't cover the entire country, but it would cover a certain sector of people?
Almost like a control group, you could say.
Yeah,
well, I heard tell that a lot of the nurses that like first rollout, that like very early first rollout, were just saline shots. I don't know what's what about that, but I remember hearing it.
Well, there's definitely like ways to check. In terms, I mean, we're so far out from the release of the vaccine now that the data would be very muddled. But there is a way to distinguish between spike gotten naturally and spike via the vaccine. And what they could do, if we weren't so far out, is we could have decided to test that and see who actually got the actual vaccine, and made an antibody test specifically for the vaccine, which we can do. They just haven't done, because then we'd be able to distinguish whether or not someone who actually thought they got it actually got saline, and we could start to like write down those lot numbers and track back whose contract is responsible for these doses. And we could do that, but they, I don't think they want to do that.
Yeah, that would require some action on behalf of the people that made billions of dollars off of this whole fucked up test. I mean, like, exactly. To be clear, it's also completely immoral to give people saline when you're telling them you're giving them a vaccine. Even if the vaccine is immoral to begin with, it's like, let's lie about the poison that we're going to give you, and then we're going to lie and actually give you saline, which is also illegal. Like, it's just turtles all the way down, basically. It's totally fucked. So
yeah, turtles
did
all
you
the way
ever make
down.
a post about that saline thing?
I will send it to you. I have not made a thread on it because I was trying to figure out like why.
Cool. Well,
and I was going to do a FOIA request, but I'll send it to you.
Should follow Desi Rezi on X, because I'm sure you'll be seeing a piece of content about that saline solution at some point here. Follow her, and you'll be inundated with all kinds of information, including stuff about saline.
I definitely know I have it because I sent it to Judith Berry Baker, because I had told her about it, and she was like, "Send it to us." So I emailed it to her, so I know I have it in my email somewhere.
Cool.
It just seemed like the natural kind of way, because in the beginning they couldn't be doing it when they were pushing it to all the doctors and all the nurses, and just the sheer quantity required, and like from like if you put on a master, like dungeon master role of like, how are we going to play this out, you're going to want to have that data. So I think like those people that really rush to it, like you don't want them like, dying suddenly too quickly out of.
But like, if you could prove that that's what happened, that is such a smoking gun of the psyop. Like the fact that either whether you're creating a control group or whether you're afraid it might kill them, so you're giving them all a fake one, no matter what it is.
Or just straight up profiteering, charging people $20 for something that cost 25 cents or 50 cents. I mean, all of that, all this bullshit. They're like, these things need to be kept so cold and all that. All the super safety protocols. And then when it came to it, it was just like drive into this parking lot and line up and
when you could have just gone and taken a dip in the ocean. Like, holy moly. Yeah. Pandemic was one of the greatest crimes against humanity in the entire history of this planet. And we still don't have accountability. So I'm glad you came on, Destiny, and helped remind us all of that, because that is a big part of what we're all expecting Maha to do. And it's what we're all still hoping Maha will do. And it's good to see what Kennedy's done over the last couple of days about it. And we're all rooting for more of that. I think I can safely say that I speak for the vast majority of Maha when I say that we're all rooting for more of the vaccine conversation, more of the vaccine studies, and more, hopefully, accountability. Although I highly doubt we're going to get any real accountability.
I will remind everybody, Senator Cassidy from Louisiana during RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing did press him very hard about keeping true to the CDC schedule and keeping true to MMR. So I said this on the Midday Maha. The one thing that we have to remember, we're over here in the Maha group. We got the Trojan horse. We loaded Bobby in. He went into the center of the beast. He's in there. He's clapping back to us. Hey, need your support. I need you to do what we're doing here. Keep the team going. Our general is in there. We got to be in the army. We got to get ready. We're not able to pop open the back of the Trojan horse right now and let the enemies out and take over. He's in the belly of the beast. He needs a little bit more time to fight against this machine, because like I said on the Midday Maha, I think he's playing 4D chess, and we only have the ability to see 1D chess. And the 4D chess he's playing has some people outside of that bubble with blow up buttons that can actually play a different game and blow everything up. So he's playing a game in there, and we just have to kind of realize that and understand. I think what we're doing here, Destiny, what you're doing, doing that and staying true to that is the mission that we need to be on. And I think we have some amazing things to do in this next 44 months.
And there's like micro actions that can be taken towards that too. Like, for example, just this saline like, saline gate, for example. Like, if we can put enough energy and pressure and the masses towards making this something that is comment worthy and worth looking into, like, at a certain point, it's just, put it under the rug. But if it gets large enough, like, that's something that, like, a lot of people are going to be questioning. And because a lot of people are like, I was fine. I had nothing. I'm good. I'm healthy. And other people are like, dead. Dead.
Yeah.
Like, children have died. And, so anything we can do towards, helping bring more accountability, responsibility, ultimately justice towards the malfeasance. And I use the term, like, this term gets thrown around a little bit, but I use the term genocide for what has happened at a global scale. And I know that word gets polarized and talked about a region, and honestly, like, a very, very microscopic portion of humanity, when we have seen a rollout of experimental technology at a global scale with, I don't even know what the total number is, probably over 10 billion injections. And potentially 6 million of those may have been saline, but 4 billion of hardcore experimental magnetic goo going into people. I don't know necessarily as magnetic goo, but that's a fun way to it as.
Yeah, I mean, one phrase that I always come back to, Kyle, specifically what you just said, in that we have a responsibility. We need to be pushing on politics. We need to be pushing on the conversation to shift the conversation with data, with facts, with sources. Is politics is downstream of culture. And that's not my quote. That's an old and famous quote. And it just means that politicians have to work within the expectations of their constituents. And so no matter how corrupt or uncorrupt politicians are, they aren't going to be having conversations that are not already mainstreamed by us, the culture. And so if we're not talking about expecting accountability, they're going to get away with no accountability. But if the whole culture, if the whole world expects accountability and stays loud about accountability, that is the most likely scenario in which we'll get any at all. And yeah, so Fauci is still free, and we should never give up saying that Fauci deserves prison for the rest of his life. He did back during AIDS. He did every year ever since. And COVID just added about 1 million life sentences to Fauci's sentence. Stay loud about it, because politics is downstream of culture.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that people think is like, well, if we just put a little bit of effort here, we put a little bit of effort there, eventually all that effort will add up and make a difference. Well, no, it won't. And at a certain point, coordinated social action, we live in this time of exponential technologies where, if it's the day of Fauci to jail awareness, and you can literally get the critical mass to change,
make that a holiday,
to change profile pictures and like make a very, very impactful message, but it just needs to be big, and a lot of people taking a micro action that sends a big message. Like, that is how you can really move the needle on these things.
Just a little smooth shill here. That's exactly the kind of work we're doing with the Midday Maha.
What's the Midday Maha, Damo?
Right. So the Midday Maha is a space we do on X 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. It's awesome. It's been such a beautiful time. We've been collaborating a lot with Billy and his partner Danielle, together with the Council on Domestic Relations. We've got America Mission in there, who streams us to like 5 different platforms. We've been connecting with all sorts of different organizers and big speakers. We cover a lot of major Maha topics. And in the process, we've been weaving together that like grassroots side of the Maha movement. Because, of course, we've got some big organizations, some big PACs and stuff. They got a lot of money. Who's stitching together the grassroots? So it's exactly to what you're saying, Kyle. So 3 times a week, we get together and we talk about something. Whether we have a guest, or not, we get together and talk. And I've been so excited because my co-host, Christina Fitzsimmons, who's just a total wonderful badass, was so supportive in helping me get this going. And it turns out she's been an incredible partner in making this happen and grow. we started it like 3 weeks ago, and right away, right off the bat, first space was beautiful, great vibes, great container, and people have been coming back again and again. And every single time we do it, and Destiny, you've been in there a few times, and I really appreciate you coming in. It's always a great share. Every time we do it, we end up meeting a new organization and making new connections while ostensibly just talking about a relevant issue. Today, for instance, we had Levi. I keep forgetting his last name. Leatherberry. Thank you, Levi Leatherberry. He's the chair of the We the People Party, which is the party that Bobby ran on in California. And I thought we would just have a general conversation about independent candidates and independent campaigns and what we might be able to do and stuff. And it ended up being probably the best space we've done yet, extremely insightful. And it felt like we came out with an entire strategy and motivated people for the midterm elections and onward. And we even, in the process of that 2-hour conversation, connected 2 people with Levi from 2 different states that are like, well, how do I get the We the People Party going in Tennessee, in Oklahoma? And part of the point was that to get a political party going in a lot of states, it's extremely low-hanging fruit. And rather than running just an independent campaign unaffiliated, if you create a political party, you create ballot access to every election in the state. So it was huge. And that's sort of a roundabout way of sort of showing the kinds of things we're doing, the kinds of things we're talking about, and the type of movement building we're really doing organically with 30, 40, 50, 60 people in a room 3 times a week. It's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. It's a great container for conversation. I kind of call it the demilitarized zone for discourse. Because I really want this to be a space that embodies the potential breadth of people that Maha can represent. I'm hoping left-leaning people start showing up and start hanging out with us and realizing it's a safe place to recognize the issues that we totally agree on and need to collaborate on. I think we actually got that first experience today. This girl came in and got up on stage and raised her hand, and I couldn't get to her right away because we were kind of having more of a tight conversation with our guest. And after like half an hour, I finally got to her, and she says, "What kind of space is this?" and I'm like, "Well, it's Maha, it's Make America Healthy Again, came from the Bobby, and all that." And she goes, "Okay, well, I'm really liking this conversation. Is this a bunch of Trump supporters?" And I'm like, "Oh, I would have to guess that most, if not everybody in here supports Trump either tacitly, if not pretty aggressively. But I just want to make sure this is a space for all of us. And I hope you feel comfortable contributing here. And I really want you to do so. Thank you so much for being here." And she walked away like very, very kind and happy. And I almost choked up a little bit. Like, yes, please let that be the first of many.
Build some bridges.
Damien doing God's work.
Like that's the work. To me, that's the work. But anyway, yeah, that's the Midday Maha. And we stream it from America Mission. I host it on my account. Club Maha is always a co-host. Christina Fitzsimmons is always a co-host. And we always have great guests and a lot of regulars.
All right, guys. Well, tonight we've talked about mRNA. We've talked about the upgrading or the accountability and accuracy of the VAERS database. We didn't really delve in too much into the Monsanto stuff in Georgia.
We're waiting for a fresh update on what's going on there. It sounds like Governor Kemp will probably let that pass into law. However, the Tennessee bill died and won't come back until next year. It looks like Florida's not going to move forward. And we're waiting to find out if any of the other 8 or 9 states that had really bad bills are moving forward. But we should have an update by next week.
We talked about fluoride. We talked about plastics, microplastics, toxins, geoengineering, weather modification. But as we go out here, I think we're nearing the end. I just wanted to. It's not necessarily Maha, but it's kind of hilarious news. And I don't know what you guys think about this, but this shit just was kind of ridiculous. And it's a whole nother rabbit hole. So what happened here?
Oh my god! Oh my god! I was waiting for someone to
You
mention
mean
it.
Katy Perry coming back from space?
Yeah, but like this, like
Look,
this whole pod,
I
like
haven't seen this video yet.
Yo,
so
look.
it's like,
I like
oh
its
no,
pristine condition.
Yeah. Look, it's
Like
supposed to open from the outside,
there's
and you
there's
see
Bezos
it's supposed to
opening the
take
door
this special
himself.
tool to open it. And if you watch
No
the video,
shit.
like I'm not often one to jump to that looked fake. The video of it descending and hitting the ground, it kind of looks fake. Kind of does.
I was
Might
more
not be
interested in the
first time
patch.
that someone faked a space mission in order to get the leg up on the competition.
I was more
mean-
interested in the patch. If you look at their patch and you look at like a police badge, it's the standard badge. It's wider at the top and goes down. Theirs is upside down. So it's on their jackets upside down. And if you flip it up, it looks like Baphomet. That's just weird. Why do you need to do that? Like, I don't
Why
just
didn't you
really
do
like
any of the things
just
that Katy Perry's
with
done
ears
since
and
she's
hair and
signed?
shit like that.
where's the actual picture? Oh, like here's this is.
Clear the tower.
Like, what's this camera? What's filming this?
Oh, a drone.
Helicopter, a drone?
That could be a
Theoretically.
drone. It could be a drone.
Okay, in the words of Elon Musk, it only looks so fake because it's real.
Yeah.
Well, even
It only
Elon
looks
is
like a
guilty of
dick
that too,
because
like-
it is.
I mean, Kyle, you really need to show the landing video. That's the one where
Yeah, I wanna
this
see the
will-
landing.
Oh, this is not
you
the
really, it just really
This is the
makes you.
takeoff. All right, let's get back to the landing here.
New Shepard has
Like
cleared.
that. Let's find.
Yeah, Katy Perry's words when she got down were pretty weird too. Like, did you just come
No,
back
the-
from
the
an
next one, I
ayahuasca
think.
trip, or
Pop out of that. Pop out of that.
What did she
Yeah,
say when
the
she
next one
landed?
down.
I missed that.
oh, just how it's like it was such a spiritual
think
experience.
Feminism, divine feminism experience.
Yup.
Yeah, the video of the landing, someone made a video of the landing and then
Okay,
someone
look at-
going through a crash at 25 miles an hour, two people sitting in a seat. And as they crashed, stuff flew out of their hands and they jolted. And then they showed a picture of the astronauts landing and
this
they
is
hit the
good.
ground at 25 and you can't, they don't look like they had any kind of interaction with the ground.
You ever seen astronauts go to space in yoga pants and no helmets? Like,
They're bell-bottom pants. I don't know if anyone noticed. They're not suited for actual wearing boots. They're bell-bottom, flare leg, like polyester pants. It's just science. So much good science.
so much science.
Monarch, there's someone else posted that she took a butterfly, covered one eye, and the monarch is the logo of, or the signal of MK Ultra, and she's covering up her one eye.
time yet.
Kyle, just search real quick. Blue Origin landing. I don't think that search is going to get to
Fake space.
Yeah. Not exactly a prompt engineer.
No, well, not at that moment exactly, but
There
okay.
you go.
There we go.
That's this might be it.
That should be at normal. A puff of dust, last milliseconds.
Tree calling the puff
Compression,
of
pick up
dust.
the dust. It's a very
Like
soft.
watch
soft
when it
landing despite
hits the
sporty,
ground.
Perception. There it is.
I don't know. I believe it. I mean, it's not hard to.
Well, this is one of the key images here. This image, like,
I mean, there's no dolphins, so it should be real.
Fair point. And I don't know. I think the door is actually the best sort of
Yeah, I can believe
arguably the
this
best
footage.
evidence, right? They open it from the inside and then they rush over and they're like, no, and they close it real quick and then they come back a few minutes later with that special tool. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we gotta open the door.
I mean,
Awkward.
this does not like that does not look real. Like the
I don't know what to
colors, like
make of
the
it.
vibrancy.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think
mean-
the story's funny, but I don't know.
You know, we're
Anything
My
that
Nana
Katy
used to
Perry
work at
does, I
NASA,
immediately
and I
don't
think
pay
it's fake.
attention.
You think it's fake?
I think it's fake. My Nana worked at NASA during the Great American Space Race. So there's no char, there's no dirt on the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
The argument
openings
for
in the
that
inside
is
door
that
thing is
this
ridiculous.
Blue Origin craft doesn't actually go up that high, and since it doesn't hit orbit and doesn't even go like laterally, it just kind of goes straight up and straight down. That doesn't create the heat and friction effect in the atmosphere that you would expect.
that does make sense.
I don't know. I just that's what I heard as
How much they paying you, Damo?
Not enough.
Not enough.
What account's it going to?
The William Shatner one is
man. Let me know when you find it.
This is
interesting
right
a great clip of Jeff Bezos not listening.
No, this is a terrible clip. It literally boils my blood. It makes me so angry. This is Jeff Bezos and William Shatner after they landed.
You want to drink?
Shatner, literally Captain Kirk, is having this profound moment of reflection and trying to share this moment with Bezos. And you watch Bezos lose interest and turn to some guy and say, "Give me the champagne and do this fucking whatever." And then he goes, "Oh yeah." So
and Shatner loses interest, and Bezos tries to save
Shatner is
it.
just dejected, and he's like, "Oh, this guy's a prick."
Yeah.
well, he's 80 years old. You know, like he's the oldest guy to go to space according to that mission, right? So like he's not interested in the
Did he
20-cent, you know, Barbie doll girlfriend, you know, shoving champagne on people and getting excited.
Well,
Like,
this
he's not
was a
interested in
totally
that.
different experience. This was when Shatner went up with Bezos. And this was like a couple years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was October 31st, 2023, 22, 22.
okay.
I think.
Good on you,
I remember
Colin.
I remember it's definitely October 13th or 31st. It was one of those two
It
numbers.
made me legitimately sad when I watched that because I felt so happy for Shatner, and then I watched how Bezos treated him afterwards and was like, that's not cool, man.
Oh, really?
Did you watch
So
the interview
this is a
that he had
total-
the next morning on Good Morning America? Did you watch that?
You
You should watch that.
Yeah.
You should watch. He said something very, very interesting that I find it's a whole rabbit hole. Like put on your tinfoil if you want to watch it, but it's pretty alarming what he said.
Can you give us a taste?
He kind of alluded to the fact that he found out that the world was going to end when he was up there, which is really scary. He like said there's a cataclysmic event coming and we all need to get ready for it. Like that's actually verbatim what he said. Yeah, it was really scary. So I don't know. You should look into it. I'll send it to you if you want it.
Yeah, please hook me up. Strap on my helmet.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
There's our fun evening rabbit hole.
that was you know, a little bit. I didn't realize. I thought Shatner was just outside of the girls, but no, that was
No, that was
It looked like it was all the
going.
same like parade of people in the same desert filming location.
No,
It's all
ending with a
bad.
little conspiracy
Watch
is
that
good. I
video
like
with
it.
the sound on for yourself sometime, man.
Yeah, ending with a little conspiracy is always good. I will give one tip. Something you said, and I heard it first from you, Kyle, and I can't remember what it was, but you said health is wealth. And we talked about crypto and all that, but the one thing I want to tell people is throughout the ages, silver and gold has been a major thing. So in this economy that we're in, just get out there and buy some silver quarters pre-1964. I bought my first one back in 2002 when they were like 60, 70 cents each. Now they're about $6 each. And I think silver's going to $100 an ounce and gold's going to $10,000 an ounce. And in that, silver will go from $6 a quarter now to $25 a quarter, $20 a quarter, just a simple quarter, a quarter that's valued at 25 cents. The way we're using it in solar panels and so much technology, it's going up. And it's just, I know we all talk about crypto, but I'm a even keeled guy and look at it all. For $6, you can go into your coin store and get a little silver quarter, buy a roll for $240, put it and
financial advice.
Yeah, just get some. That's my one tip for health is wealth.
You know, and you can also go to the bank and you can take in and you can use your debit card and you can ask them, I would like rolls of pennies, because 100 pennies is a nice thick brick of coinage. And if you were to turn $100 bill or withdraw $100, you could get 100 of these and have a very heavy sack of coinage, which is pretty funny. You can also go to the bank and you get $2 bills, which are also very funny. So like consider having fun with your money systems. Tomorrow, I think Tinfoil and Tokens show is going to be going on with Dustin. We'll be there. It's going to be a good time too. We've got some exciting things to showcase on that whole side of it. I'm going to take us out with I'm going to play just one of our friends' videos, that lovely video from Hana Life, because I haven't seen that in a while. It's a good Super Bowl. Then we'll play the outro. But just want to say thank you to everybody for everything you've done. If you like this show and you want to support us, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Club Maha. Make sure you follow everybody here on X. Definitely Club Maha. Join the Maha middays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific. And we'll be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 Pacific. We look forward to seeing you. If you want to grab some Maha gear, Go to clubmaha.com. Stay real, stay free. Let's go. Let's grow. Thank you so much, Destiny, for
Much
joining.
love, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you guys.
Yeah. See
See y'all next week.
Rock and roll.
It's been real. Where are we going?
Hana, adapting ancient traditions into remedies for modern living.
That's Hana. Hana life. All right. I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to set our outro video. Next week, we'll have Cheney back, hopefully, as well. So, yes.
God willing.
How'd I do tonight, guys?
Come on, Cheney.
You did good, bro.
You did okay. There was an awkward moment where I was on the big screen not talking for like 30 seconds, and I felt super exposed, but otherwise, you did fine.
Damo likes being the center of attention.
You look good doing it, Damo.
Appreciate y'all. Much love.
All right. One love. Later, everybody.
The sun on the field, the feeling I feel when I'm living my life for what's real. Make America healthy, feeling like it's time for a change. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back up healthy again.